Welcome to the Cinema Psycho Show, the madhouse for film freaks and film fans of all types. I'm your host, Brian Coddington, my fellow co-host and filmmaker, John Woolscroft.
Shart the Clown's back with another gore-tastic honk of shit.
Oh, wow, right? You're firing on all cylinders right out of the gate, John. You're just like, I'm not wasting any time. We're flying right out of the gate. It's 2025, everybody. Coming in hot. Coming in very hot. But yes, this week we are, celebrating 2025 with a review of a movie that initially I wanted to do back when it came out, but then the Erie Horror Fest kind of came in and took up a lot of our time, which was great. But this one kind of got thrown to the wayside. And that is, of course, we're going to be talking about Terrifier 3, the third one in the Art the Clown trilogy. And John...
Well, we're not done.
Oh, no, we're not done. So John, I feel bad because you had to watch these twice. Right?
Yeah.
You're like, yeah. You fucking asshole, yeah. Because as I mentioned before, we were going to record an episode about Terrifier 3 when it came out. I think it came out in October, but we got busy, and that's usually we shouldn't plan anything time sensitive around October because we already know October is a shit show. But yeah, we were going to do Terrifier 3. So John, because John is a completionist, took it upon himself to, you watched all three of them, right?
Well, I should know for sake, I did watch just a detailed recap of Terrifier 2. So I've seen the third one, but yeah, I didn't see Terrifier 2, but I know, thank God I did, because or else I wouldn't know half of what the fuck was going on. I'm like, why is Art decapitated? Why is she shitting out his head?
Yeah, so you watched a good bit. You saw Terrifier 3 already, right? Like you had seen it in October, and then you watched it again for this review, right?
Yeah.
So he's been through this twice. Me, this is the first time I saw Terrifier 3. I've seen the first two. I've got some thoughts and feelings about Art the Clown that are conflicting, and I have a feeling that some of our fans who maybe like our stuff might not like us after this episode.
This does have a very rabid fan base. Like, I feel that, like, right off the bat, I hope I didn't, that 20% of the listeners might have just tuned out because I shit on this movie. But for me, I don't really care about gore for gore's sake. It bores me. It doesn't frighten me. It doesn't make me queasy. And this movie is just, one vignette after another of watch Art chainsaw somebody, watch Art rip somebody's face off. And I mean, if that's your thing, that's fine. They made 3 of these and they're not quitting anytime soon. So there's an audience there for it. But I just really don't care about gore for gore's sake.
Interesting. Me, I love gore, not necessarily for gore's sake. I love 80s slashers. I have always been a fan of 80s slashers. And I like them when they're cheesy. I like them when they're highbrow. I don't care. But it's a thing where I've always been of the mind that if you're going to have gore, just as you're going to have nudity or you're going to have anything else that is exploitative, that it has to be backed up by this thing called story and plot and character. I am a film person first, and those are the things that I look for. And I think that there is a section of the horror community that is okay with paper-thin plots and paper-thin characters as long as they get their dopamine hit of gore. And that, I'm not going to criticize those folks. Those folks, they love that. I think our now new friend, Jordan Dwayne, coined them as lovers of Gornos. Great great word to describe it because I never heard that before. But it's true. I mean, the horror film fan base is very broad. It's a big umbrella where we welcome everybody. But I think there is a section of it that is very much just like, I don't care if the plot doesn't make sense. I don't care if the characters don't matter. As long as I can see some horrific gore, I'm cool. I'm good with it. I understand them mainly because I feel that those people are tired of an industry that really has only given them CGI bullshit.
Yeah.
And I think Art the Clown, and this is the argument I'm going to make for Terrifier 3 and just Terrifier series in general, of why Art the Clown is so popular. Okay, this is a hot take coming right out of the gate. Art the Clown is popular because it is in response to Hollywood's failure to deliver really solid horror films that are grounded in practical effects. That's my belief.
I mean, it's show business, right? It's not show art. So if they're going to try to save every buck they can, they're going to use CGI because CGI is not only cheaper than practical effects, but a lot of these movies, and you can see it, they'll go to the lowest bidder, who will basically kind of screw themselves over on a payday for doing 20 hours of work a day for money that is so insultingly low, and then it shows because they have to rush it as quick as possible. So I do know that, yeah, some people absolutely love anything practical effects, but to me, this is to horror what like porno is to romantic comedy, to the romance film, so Casablanca meets like cum guzzling teenagers 9, it's like all over 18, mind you.
But yes, all over 18, or they're all 30 years old playing 18.
They're both movies, but
yeah,
it's kind of almost insulting to put them in the same boat. It we saw Nosferatu, we did an episode on it, and to put that in the same building as Terrifier 3, or Psycho, or any of these movies as Terrifier 3, which is just, look, a chainsaw in a butthole. It's, to me, is kind of insulting. But look, if that's how you get your rocks off, I'm no judges. It's just not my particular cup of tea.
Yeah. I do think it is worth mentioning that I personally have a lot of respect for Damien Leone. I absolutely do. And I say that because as a filmmaker, Damien Leone has taken an independent film and that independent idea of Art the Clown and turned it in a matter of years into a worldwide phenomena based off of a Kickstarter campaign.
He's a makeup artist that decided he wanted to direct.
Doesn't matter. I don't care. The man was able to make it work. Like think about how many other indie filmmakers out there who maybe were not as rooted in makeup artistry as they were in just overall filmmaking. And they did the same sort of practice. They went to Kickstarter. They came up with a concept, but maybe for whatever reason could not bring it either across the gate to that worldwide popularity, or just that, the niche didn't land with people. I can't begrudge Damien Leone at all for coming up with a concept that absolutely knows who its audience is. And that's I think, because Damien Leone is part of that audience.
Yeah.
He is someone who wants that gore for gore's sake movie. So he knows those people and knows what they want. So what does he do? He creates a character that delivers just that. And what I find hilarious and what I love about Terrifier 3, notwithstanding my issues with the amount of gore and the lack of story, is this movie is a giant middle finger to Hollywood every single time. Like, the stories of this movie coming out and beating Joker, beating Joker 2 at the box office is hilarious, especially when you consider the fact that He only had a budget of $2 million, and they made like $89 million off of it.
Well, I think a big thing of when you can save a lot of money is when there's no stars in the movie. Honestly, the guy that plays Art the Clown is the biggest name in the movie. And it's only a big name because of the other 2 Terrifier movies.
Oh, come on. Jason Patrick's in it.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, remember him? Remember Jason Patrick? Replacement Keanu Reeves. For you people who know and are old enough to remember Speed 2 Cruise Control, you'll know what I'm talking about as replacement Keanu Reeves.
Wish.com Keanu Reeves.
Wish.com. We couldn't get Keanu, so who do we got? Well, remember Jason Patrick? Oh, from Lost Boys? Yeah. He wants to do it. Okay. But yeah, I mean, I cannot begrudge Damien Leone at all as a filmmaker because he's been able to do what honestly all of us have dreamed of doing. He created a brand new idea that was original. I'm sorry, Art the Clown is an original creation. He's not a remake. He's not a reboot. He's not a reimagining. He is original.
He's original. He's original in the way that Star Wars was original, or Jackie Brown was original.
Yeah, but
it's postmodernist. Like, these are the movies I grew up with, so here's my take on what.
And that's okay. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I think we've all like kind of gathered that there's no such thing as an original idea anymore.
Right.
So is Art the Clown an amalgamation of Freddy Krueger and the clown from It and, a little bit of Jason in there? Yeah. 100%. And that's okay. But I guess what I come from and what I'm saying, like, I have respect for Damien Leone as a filmmaker, is that whereas all of us have tried doing what he has done, he managed to do it. And I think that what I would tell any independent filmmaker to do is look at what he has done and try to align it to your audience and taste. Damien Leone knows his audience. He knows what they want. Is it what I want? Is it what John wants? Not necessarily. We love horror, but it's not necessarily what we want, okay? But he does. He knows, and he made something for that audience. So it goes back to the idea of knowing who your audience is and really believing in that vision hard enough. And on top of that, just being really smart with your campaign. I looked at his campaigns. His campaigns for Terrifier 1 and 2, I didn't see the one for 3, are really solid, like, filmmaking campaigns on Kickstarter. And I could see why they were so successful. It also helps when you have the backing of like Cineverse and Bloody Disgusting for the third one, but it took a while to get to that point,
Yeah.
So I mean, I have a lot of respect for Damien Leone as a filmmaker in that he was able to create something brand spanking new that basically serves as a giant middle finger to Hollywood. But John, I got to ask you, what do you think the plot of Terrifier 3 is? Can you kind of are you able to give any thoughts on the plot?
So, apparently our lead, who should or should not be in an insane asylum, they talk about it the whole movie, has
Sienna Shaw.
Yeah, she has access to like a super sword that is the MacGuffin, is the only thing that can stop Art the Clown, who spends the entire movie either sitting in a chair or finding a group of people to murder.
Yeah, that's a lot of it. That's pretty much it. This movie's plot picks up 5 years after the events of the second film. If you wondered why Art the Clown is back and you watch Terrifier 2, you might be like, well, he's dead. He's decapitated. Wrong-o, because rules don't matter. The victim from the first film, Victoria Hayes, who's now like scarred and visibly like destroyed, is possessed by like that first little girl that he killed, I guess.
The fact that you remember these characters' names is
I've got Wikipedia open.
Okay. I'm like main lady, younger lady who likes older lady.
Let's be honest here, John. This is the part behind the scenes that no one else sees. I have Wikipedia open because there's no fucking way I'd be able to remember it if I didn't. But yeah, Victoria Hayes is possessed by that demon thing, whatever, and she gives birth to Art the Clown's head. That's a thing in the first 5 minutes. And Art the Clown and Victoria kill Chris Jericho. I thought about you, John, the minute that I saw that, because I'm like, John is probably like, yay, wrestling.
Well, I had to pause it for a second. I'm like, what the fuck? Is that Chris Jericho?
It's Chris Jericho in a 1950s like security guard outfit.
Yeah.
Like, did you notice that? Like they were like, how can we get a 1950s medical security guard outfit and have Chris Jericho wear it? And that's what he's wearing. And he, because of his muscles, like he's like bulked out inside of this thing. But yeah, Art and Victoria kill Chris in, a blink and you miss it, cameo in the first beginning of this. And then the weirdest thing happens. They decide to like hibernate, and it's never really explained. Like they hibernate in an abandoned house.
If somebody was just to look at this script, has no idea how gory the movie's going to be, has no history of this franchise, they would say this script is nice first draft, but now maybe give it to somebody who knows structure, development, reason. But I also did hear, on top of what I just said there, that they were ripping pages of the script out while shooting. And so I think not only did they have a piss poor excuse of a first draft of a script, but then they also were just butchering it while shooting. So I think
I didn't know they were ripping pages out of the script while they were shooting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't.
It's why like the brother like just disappears.
I was going to say that was something, not to jump around a bit, but like it's revealed towards the end of the movie that Jonathan, who is Sienna's brother, is like dead, but we never see him die. And I thought, I'm like, wait a minute, why are we like, isn't that like a important person to the plot? Like, wouldn't it make sense to see their death?
And there's an old adage: if somebody dies off screen, they're not really dead.
Well, that's my thing. Is like we saw his roommate and his roommate's girlfriend die in that shower, but we never saw Jonathan die. And then it's kind of like, see, I put glasses on his skull. It's Jonathan. It was like, oh, okay, you're doing that. That's smart. Not really.
Not to jump around either, but I would say that shower scene, I think, is a litmus test of whether or not you'll like this movie. Like just that one scene alone, like if that scene ends and you got a 10-inch fucking boner and you jerk off and confetti comes out the end of your dick while watching it, this is the movie for you. But if you go, what is the point of watching this man's testicles be chainsawed? This might not be for you.
There's a thing in horror filmmaking where you don't need to show everything.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing wrong with that. And I mean, maybe this is putting my, opinion of horror, but like the stuff that always made me go, ooh, is when it's insinuated.
It's theater of the mind. It's the light you don't turn on.
Or pulling grad school references. But it's one of those things like, I think you can show enough, but it's one of those things that when you show too much, you're just like, okay, we don't need that. Like your brain can concoct the most horrible things possible if you give it enough information to do that with, plus as a filmmaker, you're trying to save money, right? Like, and if you don't have to show and make prosthetic testicles that get chopped up by a chainsaw, well, you've just saved yourself a crap ton of time and money.
I feel that's the whole point of this movie, though, is to show close up, explicit gore.
That is what Damien Leone does, and what he has always marketed his films as I am going to show you everything. that I'm going to make all of the gore happen and you're going to see it. And that is really more or less a showcase of look at all of my gory things that I can do. Nothing wrong with that. Not my cup of tea, but it is a thing that if you do go down that path, it does kind of cheapen those things over time. And I mean, it cheapens it because once you see about 5 of these scenes, you're kind of bored. Like, I don't know, John, about you, if you got bored at all watching this, but I legitimately got bored after like the 3rd or so Art the Clown kill. And that's not to say I didn't enjoy the Art the Clown kills. I actually thought those were the best parts of the movie. Okay. The worst parts were everything in between.
Were the regular people trying to develop character.
Yes. It was pretty much every time that we cut to Sienna Shaw having survivor's guilt and, you know, contemplating like whether she needs to be in a mental hospital or if she's a danger or she has to get the magic fucking sword or so all that shit. I really care about that. It was just like, let's get to the next Art the Clown kill. But as I said, like after about 4 or 5 of those, you're like, yeah. Art's gonna kill someone with a chainsaw while wearing some funny glasses, dressed like Santa Claus. That's cool. Oh.
It's why like superhero movies really space out the scenes where, you know, somebody's in their superhero attire doing an action scene. Like if it was just one after another, it starts to get a little tiresome. And this basically has, you know, Art in his superhero outfit. Literally the only thing he wears, just going scene to scene, murder to murder. Yeah, it's like, can we let up at all here just for a minute? But
no. I will say that I did enjoy a lot of these kills. I thought the worst one was not the shower one, but the mall Santa scene. Because I said this on the last episode we did on Nosferatu, that when they showed the death, and spoiler alert for Nosferatu if you haven't seen it already, when they show like Harding's 2 kids get killed by Orlok and you see their bodies like fall, that's a holy fucking shit like moment, right? And it's a thing where most horror films don't want to go that far. Like they're not going to show you that shit. Damien Leone doesn't care. At all. Man doesn't care because he doesn't care if he's going to kill a kid in front of you because he will absolutely do it. But I was like, I literally swallowed my own saliva when I was watching this because I coughed. I was like, holy fucking shit. When Art, he poses the mall Santa, he gives the kids a bunch of gifts. And then one of the kids ends up opening a present and it's an explosion that fucking kills everyone. I was like, holy shit. Like I verbally said that as I was watching this. I was like, man, he doesn't fucking care. But that was like the most shocking part of it. After that, everything that comes after it is like, yeah. Because where do you go from there?
Yeah. You just killed a bunch of little kids.
You just killed a bunch of little kids in front of it with Santa Claus giving gifts. Now, don't get me wrong. I can imagine that he had fun time writing that. And then shooting it. Like I've said before that, you know, showing corruption or destruction of innocence is probably the most horrifying thing you could possibly put in a movie. And you have a bunch of kids get killed at Santa's workshop, at a mall. That's horrifying. Just absolutely horrifying. And it is a shocking moment. And it fits the bill for Art the Clown because Art the Clown doesn't give any fucks in this movie. But I did feel like where do you go from that? And that's why, like, when you get to the next scene where he's killing the roommate and the girlfriend in the shower with the chainsaw, I'm like, oh, okay. How do you, I guess, yeah. Oh, okay. Like, cutting up people with a chainsaw. That's cool.
Art
and even when we get to the end, what was that?
Art pees a lot in this movie.
He does? I didn't notice.
He pees on Santa, and then he's at a urinal taking a leak.
Oh, yeah. Now, I got to say, An Art the Clown not kill scene that I thought was hilarious, and I thought this was the funniest thing, was his reaction to Santa Claus. John, what about you? Did you like that section?
I mean, the guy that plays Art is a pretty good actor, and I briefly like
David Howard Thornton is his name.
Yeah, and I don't want to say interact with him because I didn't personally like go up and shake his hand, but I watched him with fans at Steel City Con. He was there, I think 2 cons ago or something. Seems like a really nice guy, you know. It's like,
oh no, he is an absolute awesome actor. Yeah. I love him in all of these movies. Art the Clown is the best part of the Terrifier movies,
and I can't help but feel that that the director is doing it. I think it's him. He knows Art now. Like I think the actor is directing himself, if I had to guess. But no, yeah, he has this character down very well. And yeah, I agree. That scene is funny and amusing because of his reactions and how he plays a homicidal demonic clown.
Well, I love the fact that like you have to ask yourself, like, what would Art the Clown do if he saw Santa Claus and thought that was the real Santa Claus? And the way they approached it is he kind of reverts to like this little kid mentality and it's like hanging out with Santa. Oh, yay, Santa. And it for a moment, you're like, okay, when's the other shoe going to drop? And as you mentioned, John, like the minute he pisses on Santa Claus, that's where the other shoe drops. And then he just turns into like a homicidal maniac who, just shoots Clint Howard in the head. Okay.
Nice. Clint's still getting work. Yeah.
Clint's still getting work. Good job. Yeah. And uses a liquid nitrogen blaster on Santa Claus to freeze parts of his body and then smash them with a hammer.
Which I think is very interesting that he does not have a specific weapon. Like there's Jason's meat cleaver, there's Michael's butcher knife, Freddy's glove, Leatherface's chainsaw. Like he'll use a gun, a mallet, a knife, liquid nitrogen, whatever he can get on to destroy and rip people to shreds. The Art the Clown is not a discerning man. He'll use whatever he can.
I would say he's kind of like the Wile E. Coyote of horror villains. Yeah. Right? Like that sack that he carries around, like that's his Acme bag of tricks that he uses to kill and murder people. But it could be as simple as a hammer, or it could be, something as complicated as a liquid nitrogen blaster. Yeah. Who knows? I'm surprised he hasn't pulled out like a laser gun and just used that. But maybe that happens in part 4, because as we all know with every horror franchise, eventually you got to go to fucking space.
Oh, yeah. He'll get the Moonraker laser.
Oh, yeah. He's going to get the
Terrifier 8,
Oh, I'm thinking 4. I think you get to 4, that's when you go to space.
Well, spoilers for anybody who's not that this hasn't all been spoilers, but yeah, they kind of opened it up for a battle in hell, right? For the 4th one.
Yes. That there will be a battle in hell, and because spoilers again, but Sienna's I guess cousin gets thrown into hell because we had to have a little girl get thrown into hell, along with the magic sword that Jason Patrick gave her. Yeah,
magic sword, sure.
You're like, this is the plot of the film. Magic swords can kill demon clowns. Yeah. I mean, that's really a lot there for the plot. I mean, I can't really say much about the acting outside of Art the Clown because there really wasn't a whole lot. Like, I think it's not really fair because I don't think they were really directed with much.
No.
It's like, okay, have an intimate moment with your cousin about, makeup and stuff. Okay, let's do that. But like, it what got me was the dialogue in this was so bad. Like exceptionally bad. I don't know, John. What about you? What did you think?
I have a true crime podcast. I've been researching it for 5 years. What is your weight or something? I don't remember, but I've got a podcast.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, here's the thing. When you have kills like that are earned, those are good. And I think, John, like you mentioned, the person who gets the 10-foot chubby after watching, the roommate and that girlfriend get killed, part of it is because that was an earned kill, right? Like the girlfriend is so obsessed with Art the Clown and Sienna and Jonathan Shaw because they're the only survivors of the second film, that she just becomes annoying after a while. And like, you think that she's like a little bit like, I'm just doing this because I care, but she really doesn't care. She just wants an exclusive for her true crime podcast. And yeah, when she gets it from Art, you're kind of like, okay, this is an earned thing. But outside of that, like, the dialogue's just really bad all around. And I think that's why, like, the ending of this movie is mostly just fighting Art and Victoria, shots of, people's hands getting smashed, people getting cut, a sword fight between Art and Sienna that goes really nowhere for way too long. Like, I don't know about you, John, but I was like getting bored by the ending. I'm like, all right, someone gonna get their head cut off or something like now, because this is 10 minutes too long.
Well, I think part of the reason that you got bored by the ending was that they were trying to put narrative into the gore instead of like certain other scenes where it's, oh, Art there's two people in Art's house because they have to demolish it, but they're really just here for Art to rip their faces off and eat their dicks and, spill their guts and fuck their butts and all that kind of, whatever he does. It's like, oh no, now we have to have narrative with all of our gore. Oh, this is going to slow this down.
Oh yeah, no, I mean they really tried to like ham home all of the exposition in the last like 10 minutes. Like, Victoria served that purpose of, I'm going to talk to you about my evil plan and you're the chosen one. Ha ha ha. And oh yeah, your magic sword. Ha ha ha. And it's just like, why do we have to do this? What, part of having a story is to put those things in the story. So then there's a payoff towards the end, right? Isn't that the whole point, John? Is like, you put things happen, okay, over the course of so many acts that build upon each other. And then you have a conclusion that doesn't need to have a full-blown exposition of narrative dump right towards the end.
Yeah, that's the problem when you keep making more of these, is that you need more and more narrative then, because you can't just have every one of these movies be an itchy and scratchy cartoon. Because
that's what it is. That's what this is.
The first one is especially. It's literally just two girls run afoul of Art the Clown on Halloween.
Yeah.
And then he just kills people for 80 minutes. And they're like, well, I guess we can't just do that every time. We might need to sneak in a couple sprinkles of narrative somewhere in here.
Yeah, and it's a thing where this movie, I think what it's trying to do is it's trying to bring parts from the first movie and the second movie together. Like, that's where they brought back Victoria, who was the first, like, she was the final girl from the first movie, right? And bring her back into this world. So like, that's, and it's also complicated because not only you're trying to do that, but you're also trying to like expand the quote unquote mythos of the movie with the whole magic sword shit. And that Sienna's the chosen one. Okay.
They had to bring some holy elements into it, because otherwise, how does Art just get decapitated and then just sews his head back on and he's ready to kill again? He's a demon. Oh, okay. It's kind of what they did with the final Friday. Final. Friday.
You can never just say the final Friday. There's never a final Friday. It's just, we're waiting for the next one.
It's like when Jason goes to hell, that one is like, they kill him, but there was demons inside Jason Voorhees, and the demons will go into somebody else and they'll become the new Jason. It's like, when was that ever established? But
Well, I think the reason why those older films worked is that they had already been around long enough that you didn't know what else to do, right? And like I go back to like Child's Play, movie Child's Play. Like the first movie we know is just the soul of Charles Lee Ray inside of Chucky,
the
right?
Lakeshore
And
Strangler, yeah.
the Lakeshore Strangler. And he can't be in the doll for too long or else he starts to become human and he could be killed. Okay. All right, cool. What happens in the second movie? His no, it wasn't his blood. Was it his blood that got in contaminated to it contaminated the goo and they made a new version out of him? It was something like that.
Yeah, no, they took like the busted up doll and repaired it at the shop and he came back to life.
Yeah, something along those lines. Okay. So yeah, you have that issue happen where I think it was a skull of him. That's what I think it was. Yes. So the second one is the skull, right? They repaired the skull. His soul's still in there. All right. So we're establishing the continuity of the rules here. Okay. That the soul's still in there and that he still needs to get out, right? But then we get to Child's Play 3, where now it's the blood that dripped off of, Chucky at the end of the third one when he got all melted and he spilled into the liquid latex. And now he's formed into a new prototype doll. Okay. So it's the evolution of that mythos, but it's still kind of staying somewhat to the original. And then we get to like Bride of Chucky, where everything kind of goes off the rails, where now we've got voodoo introduced into it again, right? Or we're harkening back to the voodoo stuff, but it's still the whole deal of like, I need to transfer body. But no, we're no longer just talking about like, you can only be in the doll's body for so long before you turn human. None of that shit's there anymore. So it's the thing where you have to have multiple movies over time to really modify the mythos. And that's not here, because we still are on the third film, but we're expected to now buy all of this stuff about the sword and all the stuff about how Sienna's the chosen one and, fighting now in hell and all this. It's just too much too soon.
I think the director just doesn't care.
Well, yeah, I think that Damien Leone is approaching this from, I don't care about story. I care about showing how many creative kills I can have art do in entertaining ways.
Again, it's like the narrative in a porno. Like, you want one there because it helps with the overall, enjoyment of it. But really, let's not get too bogged down. Let's get to some gut rearranging. That's what we're really here for.
You got to have the at least first 5 minutes of the conversation before you get to that part, right? Like you can't just start right off there.
Look, Becky, if you want to keep your job as my secretary, you're going to have to prove that you're an asset to this company. I'll say some assets. Whoa. It's like, all right, that's good. Now let's start rearranging some guts.
Yeah. I mean, it's a Gorno. That's exactly what it is. Jordan should trademark that, by the way. Absolutely should trademark that. So with that said, let's move on to some reviews. I do have a couple reviews, John.
Oh boy. Okay.
Okay. So it's review time. Now, for those of you who have never watched us or listened to us before, review time is when I find some reviews. Most of them are from Letterboxd, and we talk about them. Okay. So John, you have not seen these, right?
I have not seen not a single letter.
John has not seen these. All right, let's go to review number 1. All that blood and gore just to hide the disappointing reality that the movie is an aimless mess with no sauce. Good split diopter shot, though.
That I couldn't agree more. But yeah, it really is just don't worry about how bad the story is and how bad the acting is and how nothing like is cohesively working. Look at there's a chainsaw to some balls and butthole. Look at that.
Yeah, I mean, I noticed that Damien Leone said while making this that he specifically chose to use Panavision anamorphic lenses with the intention of making it look like a vintage John Carpenter movie. None of this read to me like a vintage John Carpenter movie at all.
No, I mean, this the cinematography is 101. Let's, they knew how to light efficiently, but the lighting isn't interesting. The compositions aren't interesting. The use of lenses, like, you need more than just a lens to be John Carpenter there, buddy.
I agree. And honestly, like, the cinematography is, John, you said it's as basic as it can get. Don't get me wrong. I like the imagery of using Christmas time with this. I think Christmas horror is a underserved type of genre that we kind of forget about, because I think it's like that merging of what is most innocent with what is most horrific.
I think it's also just, it's a gimmick. Like, I said on the show that if Home Alone took place in the summertime, nobody would remember that movie. But it's a Christmas classic. It's tradition. I have to watch Home Alone at the holidays. This movie, they're like, well, let's hedge our bets a bit, and maybe people will add it to their Christmas queue every year. The ironic Christmas viewing, because art stresses Santa Claus.
And they probably will. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that.
I love, Batman Returns, but I only watch it at the holidays. I don't watch it in June when it came out.
Yeah. All right, let's go to review number 2 here. So bad. It's boring. There's, as always, no story, and the gore is too free and ridiculous. They just don't have any more ideas, do they? It's so unrealistic, even if prostheses are good. And oh god, the kids ask nothing in the mall. Unnecessary scene, just like every other ones. Art's girl is as ridiculous as him. Like, what the heck for the scene I'm talking about. Chill out, girl. And with the paranormal things that appear out of nowhere and foolishly is just bad as hell. I hate that. Now, I didn't mention this. The scene they're referring to with Art's girl is where she is masturbating with a shard of glass as Art kills somebody.
Mm-hmm. Which that ceases to be masturbation at that point, I feel.
That's not masturbation at that point.
That's just hurting yourself. That's bloodletting.
Yeah, that's bloodletting. I don't get why that's there. I guess if we're trying to show that this character is that fucked up. I mean, there had already been at least 3 or 4 scenes prior that clearly illustrated that. But hey,
they have to keep upping themselves.
I never seen that in a movie before, so okay.
We're gonna get a grenade in a vagina in the 4th one. I'm just calling it now.
A bazooka. Oh. Yeah, I also didn't understand why that scene was there. I was like, okay, I mean, if that's what we're going. That's where we're going. I mean, I don't want to say this, but I think I'm like, is Damien Leone doing this as like a real show off his makeup skills?
Sizzle reel?
Although I don't think he did all the makeup. I think he had to have people come in and do it. But
he he had to have a team. I mean, this movie, say what you want, the gore effects are very good.
They are good. Like,
he
that's
had to have 30 to 50 people there.
Yeah, you can tell that the man is absolutely putting his money on the prosthetics. And that's one thing I will give it, is that the practical effects in this are really good. I will never shit on the practical effects of this. And I think that is because that's what people are going to see this movie for. They're going to see it for, what is Art the Clown going to do this time? Mm-hmm. How horrible are the scenes going to be this time? And if Damien Leone cheaped out on that shit, it would be the end of the series. Right there.
Oh, I've got one for the 4th movie.
What's that?
There could be like a feminist in the movie that wears one of those like pussy hats, and then Art the Clown could like kill her, cut out her vagina, and put it on his head.
You're giving him ideas. You
I know.
better trademark these things. John.
Yeah.
You better get a lawyer involved. Be like, I want at least half of the money for that. All right, let's go to review number 3. David Howard Thornton is honestly amazing. You could take out all the other characters and I'd gladly just watch him be art for 2 hours doing literally nothing. Literally anything, not nothing. Yeah, I agree.
We just kind of said that a couple minutes ago. Yeah.
He's the highlight of this entire film franchise. He does Art the Clown. You know, I would say that he is at the level of, you know, Robert Englund with Freddy Krueger, with, you know, Doug Bradley as Pinhead. Like, he has become Art the Clown now in a way that, you know, you couldn't just find someone else to be him.
Right. Yeah. And I would say this, even if his career ended today, that man has an entire living off of the convention circuit until the day he dies.
Oh yeah. He could just be the guy who was Art the Clown and be fine with it. Like I have a feeling he is going to do way more than that.
Sure.
I think just like with, you know, we've seen with actors that have kind of started out in horror that they do eventually try to traverse to something else. I can see him doing that. He said in interviews that he would love to do the Joker. And I think that would be interesting.
Yeah. I always say it depends on the script. You know, Heath Ledger did a great job and Cesar Romero did a great job. Try flipping those and putting Heath Ledger's Joker in the Batman 66 show and putting Cesar Romero in the Dark Knight. They're both the Joker, but they don't necessarily work. So just because you think you'd be a good Joker doesn't mean you'd be good for whatever the movie is.
Well, I think he's done Batman fan films. So I think that's where some of it comes from. So like he's already stepped his foot into that a little bit with Batman fan films as the Joker. And I think he absolutely could do it, especially if you're going for like that 1980s, like really thin comic book style Joker. I think he could pull that off very easily. But let's go to review number 4 here, our final review of the episode. Art the Clown as Santa Claus, joy to the world. Let's be honest with each other. We don't watch this stuff for its deep plot and character development. We watch for the murders and the gore. I'm a confessed, unapologetic sick fuck, and movies where a person's scalp is cut down the center so his face can be pulled apart and ripped off were made for people like me. And since you're reading this, probably you too. I don't know much about art, but I know what I like.
And that's completely fair. As I mentioned, like, I don't have any moral issue with this. Not at all. In fact, I giggled at a lot of the gore.
Oh, I giggled at almost all of it because I also am a sick fuck and was raised on horror movies in the 80s. So I absolutely giggle at that stuff and find it funny. I because that's who I am. But I think the difference is that you and I, John, want more than just that.
Right. So if I was to watch, let's go all the way back to 1978. If somebody just showed me a highlight reel of everybody that Michael Myers killed in Halloween, I would be like, I feel like there's a lot that I didn't get there, because John Carpenter does a good job of creating characters and scenarios and building tension and fear and horror. And this one, I feel that I could have just watched the Art the Clown murders and I would have been satiated. I didn't need to watch the whole movie. Like, you know, and I feel that there's a lot of people who like this kind of stuff that would be like, yeah, I didn't even need to worry about the whole narrative thing. I just came to watch Art the Clown chop people up.
Yeah, I think there's some truth to that. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I look at it almost as like, you know when you get a cupcake and you've got some people who just eat the icing and don't eat the rest of the cupcake.
Right.
Art the Clown is the icing. Absolutely necessary. Without Art the Clown, you've got a muffin.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
the thing is this. The cupcake part of the cupcake, the actual cake part, That's what sustains the ice scene, right? That's the thing you need to have to make it not just a glob of icing. And I feel that what the Terrifier series is basically a bunch of globs of icing with very, very minimal amounts of actual cupcake in the cupcake. And I think for a horror movie to be more than just a Gorno, you have to have a solid plot. You have to have characters that I actually give two fucks about. And that's the biggest thing against this movie that it has going for it. I don't care one iota for Sienna Shaw or Jonathan or anyone else in this movie. I don't care whether they live or die. You know why? Because the movie hasn't told me to care.
Yeah.
Outside of just saying, oh, Sienna's little cousin's a little girl. I hope she doesn't get killed by Art. That would be bad. Like, that's it.
And I mean, and that is not uncommon. Like, if we look at the Friday the 13th series, which Brian and I are not really big fans of.
I'm not a big fan of Friday.
But literally, here is 7 or 8 new people to camp so that 7 of them can be killed. You know, you're going to get very little information on them. They're there so Jason can machete them in the face.
Yeah. But I mean, the reason though that I would say it's important to have those things like, I don't know, characters you give two shits about is that one, it elevates your movie from just being a Gorno to something that people are going to remember 10, 20, 30 years down the road. That isn't to say people aren't going to remember this, but they're going to remember it in terms of clips.
Yeah.
You know?
And I don't even know if the director even minds that, because the whole chainsaw scene that we mentioned after he's cut people, while he's doing it, as he's wrapping up, I should say, it cuts to like an Art the Clown Christmas song, and then he's doing Snow Angels and Blood. I really think that this film is as much to appease the Gorno audience is to piss people off too. It's like, you know, shock value comedy. I think that this is shock value horror. It's like, what can we do for people that don't like this stuff to literally just faint out of disgust while watching it? This whole movie just seems almost like a big middle finger to anybody that like has a moral issue or problem with this kind of movie.
Do those people still exist though? That like get all up in arms about like a moral issue of horror? I don't think those people exist. I think they existed in the 80s.
I really wish that Siskel and Ebert were still alive to review.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like I don't see the people marching in the streets over, you know, a horror movie anymore.
Yeah.
You know, it's not as taboo as it used to be, even like 10 years ago. You know, it's just no one cares. And you know why I think no one cares? Because of streaming.
Yeah.
Streaming has made it where it's not like you can boycott the theater anymore because no one cares if it's in the theater, because that horror movie probably isn't going to be in the theater. It's going to be on Shudder, or it's going to be on Blade Disgusting, or it's going to be on Netflix or anywhere else in streaming, because streaming has basically made it where, you know what? If you've got a movie, you can get it out there. And who cares? It's on demand for a reason.
Brian, as you know, and to your point, to add on to that, you know, now it's all chain movie theaters that have like 20 screens. It's not back in the day when you had your home theater in your small town that had one screen or maybe two. And so, yeah, anybody that's going in is going to see whatever movie you're protesting. Where now it's like, oh, but there's 15 other movies. How do you know what they're going to go buy a ticket for?
Well, like, here's my point to this. Okay, so like this film never went before the MPAA.
How could it?
That's my point. Is that, okay, it used to be the kiss of death that every movie had to go to the MPAA and every movie had to be rated. This movie went in four-walled theaters, okay, without any rating on it. Okay? On top of that was then streamed on, I think it was streamed on Blade Disgusting. So, yeah, it's it's made its money by completely subverting all of the things that would have been gateways to it. And I have respect for that, but it's also a thing where it's like, those people aren't there anymore. They don't really, it doesn't really matter. No one really cared that this movie was not rated, that if it was rated, it would have gotten NC-17 off the bat.
Yeah.
You know? So it was honestly better that they didn't get rated, you know?
Well, too, because NC-17 isn't shocking anymore either. You know?
No one cares. They're just like, well, whatever. Who cares? It'll come to streaming eventually, and then watch it. Because that's the thing. NC-17 works for 4-world theaters. It doesn't work for streaming.
Right.
You know? So, but I almost think that Damien Leone is like trying to rebel against an audience that isn't there. Like, they were there back in the 80s and 90s. They're not there now because the streaming is what's allowing your movie to get out regardless of anyone's moral implications. I can't see someone going like, oh my God, Terrifier 3. No one cares.
Especially with the internet now, too. You can't be surprised by it. I took my son to see the new Christmas movie with the clown in it, and oh my God. Although a lot of people did that with Deadpool. A lot of people were like, I took my kid to this superhero movie, and there were boner jokes and the F word. I'm like, do your research, honey, on what Deadpool is, you know?
Yeah. But now some final thoughts, John, on Terrifier 3 as we wrap up this episode.
I mean, look, if it's your thing, God bless you. I don't care. Enjoy it. Love it. Until the cows come home. But for me, just purely from my outlook on film, and again, not for any moral issue, I don't give a shit. I like gore. I love gore. So not for any personal or any reason like that. I just don't care about Gornos. I don't care about gore for gore's sake, especially when the writing is terrible. The characters are paper thin. None of them are memorable. So the plot doesn't quite make sense. There are giant holes in logic everywhere. And it's one of those, well, who cares? I just want to get to the part where he chainsaws some titties. I'm like, that's not for me. If it's for you, go at it. By all means, enjoy yourself.
Yeah, I'm very much in the same boat as you, John. For me, I have a lot of respect for Damien Leone as a filmmaker to be able to take this idea that was not based off of any property at all. That was something he was passionate about and turn it into a franchise that has been able to be a middle finger and I think thorn in the side of any Hollywood film that comes out now around October and when a Terrifier movie's coming out. Like I find it funny, honestly, that, you know, Joker Folie à Deux can fail the same weekend as Terrifier 3 coming out. Like, that is funny. It makes me laugh.
One of those movies is profitable. The other took $100 million bath. Guess which one?
Yeah. And like, you consider the fact that the advertising costs for Terrifier 3 were $500,000. That's it.
Yep.
And it made like 89 million. Like, I have respect for him for that front.
Yep.
But I do think, and I do ask the question, you've been able to create this character. You've been able to market this character as a purveyor of gore and horror and blood and guts. Can you do more than that? There's your challenge. That's what I would say to you is, I respect you. Now do something more than just this. Okay? As filmmakers, we always want to do more, and we always want to build upon ourselves and strive for something greater than our last thing. Is having another gross out scene striving for Art the Clown? I don't think it is. Maybe actually take some time and maybe you cut down on the amount of gore scenes and, I don't know, make the plot better? Make the characters better. And if that's not your side of the thing, then maybe you step into a producer role and you hire directors and actors that can do those sorts of things. Because what he's created is something very remarkable. But I just think that's the missing piece, is a story that actually is like good and coherent and is acted well. Because telling me like, oh yeah, I used a Panavision lens because I wanted to make it look like, you know, John Carpenter's horror movies. I'm like, no. and that's not a criticism of him as a filmmaker. It's a criticism of like, that's not a reason. Yeah. What's the reason why he chose that other than just, oh yeah, I want to make it look like it. And it doesn't look like it. I'm sorry, it doesn't. I've seen John Carpenter's films. They have a feel to them that's beyond just the lens that he chose. It's the stories that he's telling. It's the actors that he's bringing in. So, you know, I got respect for him. This movie isn't necessarily for me, but I challenge Damien Leone to do better with Terrifier 4. Really do.
He won't.
You say that, but I don't know. I think that if he actually like really spent the time and locked down a script that got people like us to be like, oh, in between those gore scenes, you actually spent some time and made some investment in making the characters like good, then I think he could turn around a larger chunk of the fan base. Because I really do think that this type of Gorno is one of those things where it's the law of diminishing return, where eventually this isn't going to work anymore. And that eventually people are going to get bored by Art the Clown shenanigans, and having a story that actually is good to go along with these gore scenes is going to be the only way that you keep this momentum going.
I think that's why they brought Christmas into it. I'm like, we need another gimmick.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping that another gimmick isn't the thing, but the solve to it is investing more time in the story and investing more time in the characters and making it a more complete horror movie rather than just, you know, the icing. Yeah, that's my thoughts on it, though. Good talk, John, especially for our first of 2025. It's crazy to think about this, but next year will be 10 years of the Cinema Psycho show.
Yeesh. Yeah.
Can you believe that? Next year, April 1st of 2026, will be 10 years of us doing this podcast. Fucking crazy.
That is crazy to think, because I always think it by episodes, like 100, 150, 200.
No.
Yeah, no.
10 years.
But 10 goddamn years.
10 years.
Decade of destruction.
Decade of destruction. Yeah. Insane. But we got a lot of things cooking for 2025. John's told me that he's working diligently on our list of episodes. And I think we're going to keep bringing people on, because that seems to be a fun thing to do. We bring like guests on as guest reviewers, like Jordan came on. We had Anastasia Elfman on last year too. Those are always fun episodes when we get someone else's perspective. So I think we're going to continue that in 2025. But I just want to thank all of you who listen to us, who watch us. You all really do make us matter. And without you all, we really aren't. We're just two morons talking into microphones. Yeah. So 2025, here we come. It's going to be a shit show, but we're going to be here for you. And hopefully give you a little bit of reprieve from the shit show that is reality. But John, where can they find you at on the internet?
Let's see. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and you can check me out over at JDub's Video Nasties. Currently, I have a check-in on Batman Returns sitting there. Check that out. And the first video of the year will be my So Many Questions on Men in Black.
Ooh, I'm just curious. What's your So Many Questions like so far? And what's your like big reveal on it?
Well, the idea that they just could make people disappear, enjoy the Men in Black, and anything from just the logic of that. These people better have no friends or no lives. But also,
Yeah.
but whatever your first initial is your name. Like they have more than 26 agents. So is there like JJ and KK? Well, shouldn't finish that. LLL. Caught that one. Whoops.
Caught that one.
Yeah.
JJKK. Oh man, so that's gonna be a good one.
This is Agent LMNOP.
Agent Onomatopoeia.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Well, of course, if you've liked this episode and you haven't been scared off by our criticism of Terrifier, do me a favor and share this episode with your friends. Share it out with your friends. That is how we really do grow, is when you share these episodes out with your friends. Tell them, hey, you like Terrifier or hate it? Listen to these guys talk about it. Outside of that, if you could do me a favor, go to cinemapsychoshow.com/follow. You can follow our podcast on your favorite podcast platform of choice. We got all the buttons right there. Just click the little link right there. It's in the show notes of this episode. And boom, you can subscribe to us on your favorite podcast app of choice. Outside of that, if you are watching us here on YouTube, hey, thank you so much for doing that. Do me a favor, right there at the bottom, you see that little subscribe button? Hit that subscribe button, hit the like, hit the bell notification, because all of those things do help the podcast on YouTube. Okay, I can speak to this from experience. Video podcasts are growing on YouTube, and I want our podcast to be one of those things that grows. The only way that grows is by you all on YouTube consuming it there, listening to it, watching it, and sharing it and interacting with it. So more things you do there, the better. Outside of that, if you haven't already done so, we got a newsletter, a weekly newsletter I'm still putting out. Okay, I don't know what John and I are going to talk about in our little bonus episode here, but be sure to click the link in the description of this episode to subscribe to our weekly newsletter. You will get episodes automatically sent to your email, along with a subscriber-only bonus episode that comes out once a week. This is something I'm going to continue doing during 2025. Again, that is not going to be anywhere else other than on the newsletter. So without that said, I'm Brian Connington, and we will see you next time.
All sardonicism aside, I agree with Brian. We don't do this podcast without you. Thank you for listening. We love you.